And was there like a moment that red pilled you? Like, how did you get into the space?
Well, the book played a role in red pilling me, but what happened after that, I worked in a residential treatment facility. And I came into work after reading that book. In one of our staff meetings, I asked everybody why we were assessing every woman that came into our facility for whether or not she'd been a victim of domestic violence. And we were assessing all the men who came into our facility for whether or not they'd been perpetrators of domestic violence. And we weren't asking women whether they were perpetrators or men whether they were victims. I
Wait, what type of facility was it?
Substance abuse treatment.
Oh, and so they would automatically ask the women if they were victims and ask
Yes.
the men if they were Is that because of the Duluth model, right?
That was the Duluth model, and
Yeah.
it also goes back to just sugar and spice
Mhm,
narrative about women and men are bad, women are good
mhm.
narrative that's been around is at least as long as Duluth or longer. But when I asked about it, I got hostility. I mean, there was outrage among
Yeah.
my peers for even asking the question. And my first thought was, I think I'm over some kind of target here. I don't know what it is yet,
Mhm.
but I'm going to find out. And I've been finding out ever since.
And so did you end up like leaving the facility or
Yes.
how did that
I
play
ended up
out?
leaving the field
Oh, wow.
and doing my own thing. I just couldn't take it anymore because
Mhm.
there was a lot more problems than that. And some problems not even gender related. The recidivism rates in chemical dependency treatment are abysmal, and lots of other reasons to leave.
Mhm.
But my interest in men's issues took me into counseling men, and
Mhm.
that's what I've been doing.
And what would you say are the common problems that men come to you with?
Um, they've been screwed over by
Yeah.
women for the
Yeah.
most part. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not casting dispersions here, but
Mhm.
of the men I talk to, 98% of them, whatever life circumstances they're dealing with at the time, go back to decisions that they've made regarding women, getting married to the wrong women, getting the wrong woman pregnant, getting in a relationship with somebody who'll make false allegations, all these things, and not screening women. It goes back to that. But their drinking, their drugging, their depression, their suicidal ideation, their all kinds of life problems. When we talk long enough, we get back to the women in their lives and what they were expecting.
Mhm.
Guys think I'm going to meet a girl and fall in love and she's going to love me back and we're
Yeah.
going to go off happily ever after into the sunset. And then they find out that it doesn't really work that way.
Mhm.
And it's devastating for them.
And you found that even people that are men that are struggling with substance abuse, it's mostly women too.
Well, absolutely. I
Mhm.
mean, a lot of guys drink over bad marriages.
Right.
They're miserable. They don't know what to do. They have children. If they get a divorce, they're worried about. Sometimes the wife is abusive, and the man won't leave because they won't don't want to leave the children
Right.
with an abusive mother, and they already know the courts are going to give her custody,
Right.
so they stay and they drink or they drug or they engage in other risky behaviors or have affairs. Eventually, they blow up and slap her or something like that, and then that sets problems into motions.
And do you think this starts for men from childhood? Like, where do you think this comes from? Because we were talking about it earlier. Just the simping, like they just want to appease women all of the time.
Well, look at your average family or
Hmm.
people from my generation grew up in homes where it was an edict you better make your mother happy. If
Right.
mother complains to father, you're in trouble, sometimes really abusive trouble.
Mm.
Um, so it starts in early childhood where father's off at work, they're left with the mother at home. They learn to please mom. They get manipulated. The child manipulates back, pleasing the mom, anything to make her smile. And that sets a behavioral pattern that they take into relationships. They go into their first year of school. It's all women. They have to
Right.
please the teachers. Their lives are shaped by women for the first 18 to 20 years
Hmm.
in almost all cases. And the men learn early, you've got to make her happy. If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
Hmm.
We didn't coin that by
Yeah.
accident.
Yeah.
It's true. So when you're conditioned to please women, that's
Mhm.
where your mindset is at.
Mhm.
Um, it carries into your relationships and it ends up making men very miserable.
So we've talked about it before, but just for the audience, what is gynocentrism?
Good question. It's on paper, gynocentrism is just a system of beliefs and attitudes and rules that focus on the well-being of women over the well-being of men. Our attention and energy is focused on making women happy, keeping them safe, giving them what they want. It goes back, oh gosh, at least 1,000 years to the advent of romantic chivalry, which is a big part of modern gynocentrism. Gynocentrism itself historically wasn't such a bad thing. If women weren't alive to have children,
Right. Yeah.
we would have been in trouble, and they had to be able to protect children and nurture them and get them to where they were self-sufficient. So there were a certain amount of gynocentrism was absolutely an imperative for the human species. But once romantic chivalry hit the mainstream throughout Europe and then eventually in the West, it was more than keeping women alive. It was about keeping that smile on their face all the time. And if we fail, then there's a problem. And that's what led to a lot of simping.
Well, that's because that's kind of a new concept to me. You guys think that romantic shit, like romantic love, and I'm a little bit undecided on it.
Okay.
So I want you to convince me. Like, why is romantic love such a bad thing?
Because it puts unrealistic expectations on a relationship. Romance is about whining and dining. It's about, and let's be honest, romance is about making women happy. There's nothing in the romantic model that says a man has to be happy at all.
Yeah.
The romantic model says a man has to produce. He has to produce jewels. He has to produce nice things.
Right. There's no like, does she cook him dinner? It's always, yeah.
There's some of that, but it's always sort of like, a millionaire gets a wife who takes a part-time job in a dress shop. She says, here's my $200 to contribute to the 10 million you have in the bank. But back to the romantic thing, look at the model of how proposals go in the West. Everybody has that image of their mind of a man down on his knee, bearing a gift, jewelry that's supposed to represent 3 months of his salary. It's all set up. It's all arranged in advance. That's romance. Romance is laying rose petals at her feet. Romance is talking to her.
Worshipping women.
It is a worship thing.
Yeah.
Now, gee, what could go wrong there long term? If you start a relationship with that kind of unrealistic expectation, that only thing that matters is elevating her. The only thing that matters is her happiness.
And that's why you get these women saying they fell out of love.
Absolutely.
Because they came in with the expectation of romantic love.
And women aren't particularly romantic. There's another little flaw in that system too. Men are.
Yeah. Men
are the romantic ones. I work with couples. I work with men post-divorce. It's always the men that are devastated by it, the broken heart. I mean, I see it affects women too, no doubt. But for most guys that I work with, by the time the divorce rolls around, she's doing well. Got a new boyfriend.
Right.
Probably had one before they ever broke up. She monkey branched right out of it. And women tend to do their grieving while they're in the relationship, and then they're done. And then a guy is like, oh, it's over now. Then he starts grieving.
You know what's crazy? Men will still talk highly about a wife that absolutely fucked them. Excuse my language. But like a guy will have been taken through the ringer of like divorce court, alimony, and they'll still find something positive to say about her. Where women could have a good guy and they'll absolutely trash him.
It's a lot worse than that in my experience. I worked with a guy once that had been divorced for 8 years, and he was still acting like a puppy, trying to be let into his ex-wife's life. And I've seen that happen over and over and over again. It's almost like they can't divorce.
Yeah.
Guys she'll have sex with one of his friends and then call him a week later and say, I need you to help me move. And he'll show up. To lift boxes and furniture. Men do this all the time. It's why I don't really have, I probably should, I get criticized for it. I don't have a lot of sympathy for men in these situations. They make horrible decisions based on crazy ideas. Anybody should be able to look at that image of a guy down on his knees bearing a diamond saying, this is how I want our life to be, as totally unsustainable.
Right.
But it doesn't even enter our minds. We're just like, oh no, she's smiling.
Because it's been programmed into us for like 1,000 years.
Exactly. And it is not a natural arrangement between men and women. Like I said, gynocentrism, certain amount of it is natural. And it's easy to understand how we got there.
Yeah.
But this romantic notion, matrimony, so they don't call it patrimony. Marriage, matrimony used to signify a time when a woman put aside being a child and became an adult responsible for a family. She had to produce, she had to do all kinds of things. She had to take care of children. She had real responsibilities and real work. And then when we brought romance into it, the object became, oh, you don't have to work. We just put a cushion under your butt and you can enjoy life that way.
Yeah, well, because that's what I would always hear is that we didn't have to work back in the day, but we used to live on farms. So I'm like, life was 1 billion times harder if you were a stay-at-home wife 100 years ago.
And I hear most of that crap from men who think somehow that there was this magical patriarchy in the past where women didn't work. Women worked brutally hard and had shorter lives because of it for thousands of years until we developed the technology to rescue them from that. And we've applied it all in just such an insane way. I mean, look at the state of women right now. What percentage of women are even marriageable? Right
3% statistically, if you want no tattoos, no debt, and and under the age of 35, I think.
Yes, and
there's a couple more they added into it, but it was like in the book of numbers, like not overweight, no other kids.
3%.
Like, yeah.
And so it becomes a man's job. And here's the problem.
Men just have to man up and marry these whores.
Yes, of course they do. That's the right thing to do. And that's what they've been doing, which is why, half of the marriages are failing. And then 70% of second marriages are failing. It's a failure of men in my book. They want to practice these unrealistic expectations. And I think they've got a sort of shame-based thing going on here. If we don't make women happy, we're not men. That's also tied into this.
Oh, wow. That's really true. I didn't think about that till you said it, but that's really true.
It is.
If we don't, because that was even during the Michael Knowles debate, that's what he said. I said, well, if she gets the wrong group of friends, she can leave if she does this. And then he's like, oh, well, you got to watch the friends. You got to watch the leadership. And so it's like putting all accountability for a marriage failing on the man.
Absolutely.
When sometimes like a chick she just wants to go. You can't do anything.
And most of the time, I mean, monogamy is a hard thing to maintain for both sexes.
Yeah.
It's tough. Women have easy outs. And if men don't make her happy, the first thing she's going to do is attack his masculinity. When she goes out and badmouths him, it'll be all things that undermine his status as a masculine man. He doesn't work hard enough. He doesn't pay enough attention to me. He doesn't do this. He's always doing that. These are things that shame men, and we buy into it instead of, treating her like a guy, which is what I recommend.
Okay. Explain that a little more. Treat her like a guy.
Same standards.
Yeah.
Guys will take shit from women that they would punch a man in the mouth for.
Right.
Constantly. They do that without thinking. And I'm not, before somebody says Pauline's recommending punching women in the mouth, I'm not recommending any such thing. But just the capacity to hear a crazy, unrealistic expectation, like I want a 3-carat emerald cut VS1 diamond for an engagement ring. Guys don't have the ability, or they should have the ability, to say, the fuck out of here. We are in an age where I think it's okay for men to start telling women, you're responsible for your own happiness. If you need a piece of carbon mined by slave labor, a 12-year-old in Africa, to feel good about yourself, go buy one.
Right.
Women can work. They can produce. guys won't do that because it makes them feel unmasculine.
Right.
And so it's a trap. Nobody's going to survive. And love is, love is a funny thing. The romance stuff and infatuation, none of that is love. It never was love.
Mm-hmm.
Love comes 15, 20, 25 years into a relationship with somebody. And how do you get to that point where there's real intimacy and real love if one person's fawning over the other all the time? All it does is build resentment and entitlement.
Mm-hmm.